Hi, this is Dr. Josh Matthews. We're going to look at the introduction to Star Wars today, episode 4, the first 5 minutes of it. I'll very quickly break down for you several of the elements of this opening and show you things you've never seen before. We're going to interpret this deeply, not considering what was intended by George Lucas or by anybody else, but what we see on the screen and what it could possibly mean. As I said, I don't think you've seen Star Wars episode 4 this way before, so join me and look at it very carefully and closely for the first time. So we'll start out with a drum roll for the 20th Century Fox theme. So we get a music on a black screen before 20th Century Fox comes up, and then 20th Century Fox. It might not seem that this is part of the movie, but having watched this movie a lot of times, this is always part of the movie somehow, some way. And George Lucas, of course, used the extended 20th Century Fox theme here. Let's hear it. This one. So for 20th Century Fox movies in the 60s and 70s, as far as I understand, they abbreviated that theme. It was chopped off. It didn't do the da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. It didn't do that. Older 20th Century Fox movies, go back and watch them from the 40s and 50s, did, some of them at least. So George Lucas is clearly, at this point, hearkening back to older movies. Now, of course, he's going to do that later on with in fact, in 10 seconds here with the opening scroll, which looks like the Flash Gordon serials of his youth. So we'll see that in just a minute, too. What is going on here? Now, I want you to look hard at this. What's going on with this language? It's very important. It sets us up first as a fairy tale, as an ancient epic even, a long time ago. It's also science fictional, a galaxy, far, far away. So we've got two things going on. Of course, Star Wars has been called science fantasy, and here, but it's already announcing before it even starts that it is science fantasy. You have the fantasy aspect and the ancient epic quality to the story, but yet it's going to be set in a place beyond the planet Earth, far beyond, in a galaxy. That's a cool word, galaxy. They could have said solar system, could have said another universe, puts it in our own universe, and yet puts it far away. These words are also sort of poetic. There's a line break here that doesn't need to exist. You could have, whoever did this, probably Lucas, could have fit this all on one line. There's two lines, and so then there's an effect here of this line being by itself far away, dot, 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 dot. And of course, what's going to happen to Luke Skywalker later in the movie? Well, he's going to travel far away from his home planet. This is setting us up already to get the scope of the story going from one place to go far away from that place. Ancient and science fiction. Long time ago, distant past, distant future even, maybe hinted by this word galaxy. We're going to see the scroll in just a second, and that's also going to be hinted at in the opening scroll of the words. Kaboom! Oh my goodness, I'll stop right there. That blast of the trumpet sound sets us up for the whole adventure story. It's a kid's adventure story. It's going to be fun, exciting, thrilling, and so on. We're just going to see that in the next 2 minutes with the spaceship battle. John Williams sets us up with that already. What is this movie like in terms of other movies? Let me make a weird comparison. This movie is like The Godfather. That sounds ridiculous. Francis Ford Coppola, the director of The Godfather, is George Lucas's buddy, right, in the 1970s. How does The Godfather open? With a black screen, a mournful solo trumpet, sort of announcing, I think, the themes of the movie. Which is a single individual who just is lamenting or sad or something like that, right? But here you have lots of horns blasting in a good way and articulating the themes of this movie. That we're going to have a lot of things come together, a lot of characters come together to do something awesome, aggressive, powerful, and potent. So in a way, these two openings are very similar in that they announce what the characters are going to do in this movie. If you take the single horn in The Godfather to be like Michael Corleone character, maybe even Don Corleone. But here you've got the whole team of Star Wars characters coming together, and that's what the horns are doing together, blasting forth through the universe, just like the characters will blast forth into space later on in the Millennium Falcon and in other spaceships. So we got the Starfield. words going into the background. And then episode 4, which gives us the intrigue of the story, has already been taking place. And there's the scroll of words. Now, it's not uncommon for movies, I turn this way down, it's not uncommon for movies to begin with some kind of title, textual introduction. This is unique, though, to me. I think Flash Gordon serials were doing this in other kinds of older movies in the 1940s, 30s, and 40s, perhaps. But what this is doing is two things, at least. One is that it's talking about the ancient quality of the story. It's a scroll being unraveled across the screen. Who uses scrolls anymore? I mean, scrolls indicate something ancient, something old, the older form of writing before the codex or the book. So the scroll's unraveling, but it's on the starfield. So you have, the ancient quality of this thing with the science fiction or futuristic quality of it merging together already in this story. We know it's going to be an archetypal story where Lucas takes ancient epics. He read Joseph Campbell's Hero of the Thousand Faces and tried to make something that was as archetypal as the stories in there, Song of Gilgamesh, Homeric epics, and so on. And yet, of course, this is futuristic. We have a Death Star, an armored space station. It's a space station, okay? All of these words are combining together to make for a pretty interesting, persuasive case that this movie's going to be great. It's a kid's adventure story. I mean, who's not going to be thrilled as a kid by Civil War, rebel spaceships, victory against the evil galactic empire? This is a space opera. Clearly, a battle, rebel spies. These words are exciting, thrilling, and fun, okay? Later Star Wars scrolls will be terribly boring. Tax problems, trade route problems, who cares about that? I was with that episode 1 or 2, but this one is exciting, and the words already persuade us to kind of like what's going to happen. And then you have the fairy tale quality. We have a princess and an empire. And restoring freedom to the galaxy. By the way, I like the words being, going across space here as if they're being transmitted from one place to the next, as if the words are going to go from one planet to the next. This is 1977. It's been 30, 40 years where humans, have transmitted radio and then TV signals out from Earth to outer space. That's what's going on here with text flying across space. In a couple years, was the Voyager 1 satellite's going to go out and send all kinds of human information out into the stars. That's what this is. It's also cool that the words are flying through space as if you could take a spaceship and go find them and watch them go across space. Things are receding into the background here. They're going from foreground to background. We'll see that happen in the upcoming shot where the spaceships go from foreground to background. And you'll notice the words are going to turn into lights and even stars. So the words become stars, right? Another thing about this is, of course, going from foreground to background, we're going to go from planet to outer space, from Tatooine to outer space later in the movie, and that's what Luke Skywalker does, is go from low to high, from planet to outer space. Alright. And the music is already cueing us to feel something, and this is already warning us before the ships show up, so wait for the ships, but the music is telling us what's going to happen. And we can hear them. Can you hear them in the background? I think you'll even hear the laser blasts. Oh, there's a laser. And now we're in for what is a really well-known part of this shot. Quoted frequently. Everybody knows this. But the question is, why is this so great? What is actually going on here that makes this so memorable? We're going to look at that. Alright, so that's the second shot there. Let's look at all the things that are happening. Most people just watch this and they just go along for the ride, which is great. It's a roller coaster of a movie. So turn your brain off and enjoy. However, there are so many things happening in this first shot alone that relate to the story, the style, the mood of the story. It's just going to be hard to even describe it all, so we'll do our best here. First, let me turn the music down for just a minute. I'll make the case that the music is actually, and the sound effects are the star of the show. What we're doing is tilting from abstract empty star field down onto a horizon where there's going to be a planet here. So we're always seeing a moon or some kind of a planetary body there. And we're going to then tilt down and rest. The camera's going to rest right here. Yeah, there it is. Now, we already have the ship, so we know they're coming. But this composition is fairly balanced. It's not totally balanced. We could take this moon and put another one over here, and then we have complete balance. By the way, the balance in the Force is going to be an issue through this movie and actually the rest of Star Wars, so that's kind of interesting. This is sort of out of balance, but kind of getting there. We have a horizon line, so this is an unnatural shot in that no one's ever going to hover right above a planet and look out like this unless you're in a space capsule, you're Alan Shepard or Neil Armstrong or something like that. Very few of us have seen that, and yet this feels like a ground or a floor right here, a horizon line looking out over a big sky. So then this is a restful composition, and yet it's got some tension in it because it looks like, well, we could fall into the planet below us. The ships are going to interrupt this nice balanced, semi-balanced composition, and the big ship is going to basically, one, obliterate this planet. Or moon, we're not going to see it anymore once the ship goes across it. Two, it's nearly going to crush this horizon line here, crush the planet, and it's going to feel like it's going to crush us. So let's take a look at this. We got the little ship coming in, going from foreground to background, just like the scrolling words did. We get the laser blast in front of us, so it feels like we're part of this battle. And then there's the ship. And we sort of already know who the good guys and bad guys are. Who we should root for and who we shouldn't root for, right? Now look at that. Already the ship has sort of partly taken this out, but it obliterated that planetary body in the background. Now I make a big deal of this because guess what's going to happen later in the movie? The Empire is going to take their Death Star and blow up a planet. Okay, so the obliteration of planetary bodies is already being hinted at here. Yes, this is true. I don't know that Lucas intended this. I have no clue. The composition shows us that. Second, we feel really uncomfortable here as this ship interrupts the semi-balanced composition and crushes us from the top. And the crushing is not just something, pushing down on us. It's this machine-like vastness above us. That's going to be key. The Empire is associated with machines, sort of this stale style of the grays and the whites and the blacks that you'll see in just a little bit. But that crushing happens here vertically, right? As we are being crushed. Later on, the characters in the trash compactor on the Death Star will be crushed or nearly crushed like this. Remember when Luke and Princess Leia and Han Solo have to fight off that trash compactor somehow. The Empire is a machine that crushes, and as you'll see in a little bit, that swallows up our ragtag group of heroes, okay? So this is so great, and I love how even this feels balanced. Look at that right there as this is taking up this part of the screen. There's a nice cut here. It feels like the ship should go all the way into the background, but it doesn't. It cuts right before it, so there. We get the other side of it and increases the tension. Then we're going to cut to the little ship. Close shot, we're going to know who to root for, which is the little ship. And, boom, there's a laser blast. And we're going to go inside the ship. Let's look at that one more time with great effect. It's so well done. By the way, the ship here, it's elongated. It looks massive. And there's a good trick happening here. In the 1970s and before, all spaceships in movies look cheesy, or nearly all of them. They look like models or toys. And that's the problem here. George Lucas didn't have the budget to do what he has been doing, or what he did in the 1990s. Didn't have computer animation or anything like that. Always the problem is, well, for some viewers, they just look like models or toys floating in space. But the trick is to set the camera up in such a way to make this ship look absolutely massive, to get our brain to think this is a real, vast, massive spaceship crushing us. And then later, when we see them in sort of profile, or there, we're less likely to think of them as toys or models, even though, of course, if you really looked at it, that's what they are. Alright, so here's the lasers are flying across the screen. We hear the great sound effects from Ben Burt, one of the geniuses who really helped George Lucas make this movie and the whole franchise into something potent and global. But watch this. We have the blast of the ship, and then we go inside it, watch the camera. A little bit of shaking there to make us feel like we're part of this. Now, Here's our two characters, C3PO and R2D2. Bunch of guys fly by, cut back to C3PO and R2D2, and then...
Did you hear that? They shut down the main reactor. Will be destroyed for sure.
This is our one bit of dialogue. That was all... In the first 3 minutes of the movie, those are all the lines you hear. So the movie is just showing you the world, setting you up in this world with hardly any dialogue. Just one character saying some lines in English. I guess R2D2 talks, but beep, see, we don't know what he says. Just one more time. I'll turn the sound down a little bit so we can look at what's happening visually. And here we have the shaking. We have our comedic duo. George Lucas has talked about the influence of Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress with the two bumbling doofuses who stumble through a world where they... Beginning of Hidden Fortress, there's a war going on, and they just bumble through the war. Then they stumble into Han Solo-like character and the princess, and they got to go to a fortress. So these two characters, we're going to end up following them. I want you to notice, though, these 3 shots here, 3 or 4 shots, we're supposed to identify with the robots and not with the humans. Okay, so you'll see that right here. We see their faces. We see them in profile. We see them in sort of medium close shot. We're worried about them because they're just shaking. And then these guys fly by. We can't see their faces. We don't focus on them. These are humans. And then we go back to the robots. So who are we supposed to side with? Well, these guys, that already we're empathizing with them. We're becoming... We're part of their world. And then... Did you hear that? This is madness. Oh, there's some great lines there that signal a lot of great things happening there. Okay, first of all, not to overanalyze this, but I mean, every detail is so crucial. You get it just right to make it memorable and so influential. That's why we're looking at this. He says, what's the first line of any Star Wars movie ever? Did you hear that? Why does that matter? Did you hear that? Sound effects and music have already been a character in this movie. With the opening horn blast, orchestral blast of John Williams' score, to the sound effects of the ship, the laser blasts, which are great, the Ben Burt sound effects, so memorable. The words, did you hear that? Maybe they didn't have much significance at this point, but they take on a ton of significance now, because what is Star Wars known for? One of the things is its sound. It's an amazing movie, amazing series as far as its sound. Sound, as I've been saying, is a character in these movies. It's a great opening line, as it turns out. Whether it was in 1977 or not, I can't be for sure.
Did you hear that? They shut down the main reactor. Will be destroyed for sure. This is madness.
This is madness is a quote from The Bridge on the River Kwai, the very end of The Bridge on the River Kwai, where the British doctor says, madness, it's madness. It's a World War II movie. Now, Star Wars is a World War II movie as well. We have a horrible, evil empire oppressing ragtag groups of individuals or planets. And the idea that this is wartime, as well as the dogfighting spaceships at the end, which are modeled on the World War II shots of planes fighting in Europe, in the European theater, also Pacific theater in World War II. So this is deliberately a World War II movie, and that quote from The Bridge on the River Kwai is there, and it's really potent. So these guys were tracking backwards, and there's a lot of foreground, background stuff happening here. They're in the foreground, we're tracking with them as they remain in the foreground. The background's going to be important, because what's in the background is that door. Alright, they'll look up here. What's above them? Well, the exterior, the ship is swallowing them. That's what's above them, and boy, I like that wonderful shadow that flies over it, or goes over. It's great. Everything here, by the way, is setting you up for Darth Vader, who's going to enter in about 30 seconds. And I love this cut right here. Sometimes George Lucas, I think, oh, he's just an okay director. I don't agree with his compositions, or I don't think sometimes they're very interesting. This one's a good one, though, because the previous shot showed the small ship on which our humans and robots exist being swallowed up by the massive machine of the Empire. And then the composition has our characters contained within this wall or window or doorway or whatever. They're sort of contained within this box right here. We've seen them in closer shots, but now we see them in the distance, and we see how enclosed they feel. Now, the trick here is that we're empathizing with these robots. They are the most human-like characters so far, right? Other than, well, no, that they are. They've talked, they've shown emotion, and now we've seen them feel through this composition scared. of what's going to happen to them. By the way, these two, they're sort of the classic comedic duo. They're very different, and yet they're always a pair. Laurel and Hardy, Penn and Teller. Any comedic duo, Don Quixote and Sancho Panza, okay? One looks like a human, one does not. One is gold, one's blue, silver, and white. One is short, one is stocky, one is tall and thin. I mean, and one talks, one beeps. It just goes on to the differences between them, yet they're always a pair. Think about all the comedic pairs, Abbott and Costello, and they are reflecting those. Alright, we have guys who are going to be killed. This guy looks determined, but he's going to die pretty soon. Wonderful sound effects here. There's door, guys, door, guys, door, guys, door, and then, okay, so the guys in the door increases the tension a whole lot. Now we're close shot, this door is going to explode, and we're going to see a battle where the camera's all over the place, showing the depth, but showing us up close, and the laser blast firing all over the screen. And then we have, okay, these guys right here. So we have a difference between the humans and what we presume are the bad guys. Humans, bad guys. Now, who are they? They're all the same, and later in Star Wars lore, we find out they're clones. But at this point, 1977, we don't know. They look like robots. Could be humans in armor. Either way, it doesn't matter because they're all the same. That's bad. They're part of the machine. They're wearing armor versus the humans who are wearing sort of loose Robin Hood-esque clothing. And so there's a huge difference here, and the machine versus human thing is going to come up over and over again in this movie and then the rest of Star Wars as far as the next 3 episodes of Star Wars. And the laser blast sound effects, great stuff here. The humans are losing. There's going to be some fog and smoke. That's going to obscure our vision. You see a camera cutting all over the place here. This is a battle like World War II. And look at that smoke fill the room, obscuring things. Now, our characters over here, we're going to learn a lot about their personality. We'll learn a lot about what's going to happen to them. They are, first of all, caught between the rebels and the Empire. And second, they are going to fly across here. And what does this indicate to us? They are lucky. They are serendipitous. It's part of their character traits. That they will always be lucky. Here's the door is going to blast right if they go in it. Just in the nick of time. They get through. And there we go. Is the entrance to a very famous character. Our third famous character in Star Wars, with the music helping us out. And all we need is the breathing to tell us all we know. And again, no dialogue here. How did this work? Again, I've been talking about the foreground and the background throughout the whole thing, beginning with the scroll and the words flying across the screen from foreground to background. Now, here we've got background. The foreground is Darth Vader emerges from the door, from the evil ship, from the fog and the smoke into the foreground, right? And he, too, is going to be a machine. He's going to be, who knows what he is at this point. We learn that he's human in a machine-like, environment and costume. But look at him walk up close. His composition is somewhat interesting. I mean, he's taking up the whole frame here. He's the middle part of the frame. He's the dominant. He's looking down at the dead humans. Oh, I've killed them. Haha. He's associated with killing and torture. Very quickly in the movie, he will be torturing people and trying to kill people. Also, he is pursuing the humans and the robots. This will happen repeatedly throughout the movie. He will pursue them in the Death Star when Luke and Han Solo and Princess Leia are in the Death Star. He will pursue them in the ships, the spaceship dogfight at the end. So this is, again, one of the major ideas or themes of the movie is the pursuit of the Empire, trying to destroy the ragtag group of rebels and heroes. Being announced right here. And then we're going to cut to the power shot of him, low angle, looking up at him, big and tough. This is sort of angled here, so something's off or weird, maybe even evil, and that's what's being indicated by the composition and by the angles. But yeah, there he is in full. I'm going to walk to his left, we're going to see him, and there's the plate right there. This video is part of my shot-for-shot series. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to keep cranking out this kind of content. Hopefully you'll like to watch movies and analyze them like I do. If you do, subscribe to my channel. Really appreciate your comments. Thank you. Have a great day.